All right, here we are, another Thursday. Welcome, everybody. I wanted to first give an opportunity for questions. You guys have had some good questions over the last few weeks, so I like hearing what topics you're interested in, what kind of stuff you want to talk about. So, did anybody come here tonight wanting something addressed, something answered? Okay, very nice. We got a few hands already. Mr. McEwen, unmute yourself, please.
Yes, sir. Why do you feel that at this time in history that we don't have any spiritual leaders that are stepping up and addressing the world? The Pope says a few things once in a while, but it's nothing fiery. We used to have the Dalai Lama come out, and I guess because of his age, we don't hear from him much anymore. Billy Graham passed away, but there used to be, yogis from India, and you don't hear anything from the UN about anything. It just seems like everything's going to hell in a handbasket and nobody's stepping up to take over a spiritual position on anything.
It's a great question, but controversial to answer.
Right. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a religious response, but it's just there's nobody. Just doesn't seem like anything. It just seems like the old spiritual leaders have either retired or died off, but nobody's willing to step forward. Somebody new.
Why do you think that is?
I just guess people just gave up on the old traditions and just didn't want to follow through with those.
They didn't give up. I'm going to say.
Well, I mean, there's no new blood willing to take on the old traditions and walk in step with that. It's just for some reason it just died out.
Yeah. That's why we're in the mess we're in. People have moved further away from God, the source, the creator. And that's why this can become very controversial very quickly. Because I don't want to offend anybody. And I'm not going to name any names. But I will say corruption at the highest levels. I will say great financial gain, great control. In other words, you get to the head, you control the rest. And so, if you want a particular way of thinking, if you want to get a particular narrative across, you get to the leaders of a group. So, I don't want to get into too many details, but this is why why do you need a spiritual leader? And I'm asking that somewhat because of what I want to say next. I don't really want an answer. So what have we always said is the most important thing we do? The most difficult thing we do and the most important thing we do. And most people that have been around for any time at all will answer meditation. So when I say, why do you need a spiritual leader? You have to develop your own connection. This can't be dogma-based. This can't be even religion-based. This is ancient truth. Knowledge of self. Knowledge of self includes a direct connect to all that is, to the Creator directly. And so, when someone speaks, I find I can try through my heart, my intuition, through decades and decades of meditation, through doing my best to live what I teach, meaning not being a hypocrite. And what I mean by that is we always say practice 24/7. So I try not to let a moment go by without some form of connection. Love God with all your heart and all your mind. You directly connect, you can sense truth, you can sense, I mean, let's not kid ourselves, we can all be conned, we can all be tricked. But I've sat down with pretty well-known psychics, let's just say, for example. There's one that just popped in my head, a psychic. And very well known, very well respected. And she started giving a reading. And I could discern what was coming through spirit and what was coming through her opinion. And I shocked her because I questioned her. She sat back like, how did you know that? Which really clicked for me that I hit the nail on the head. And this is what I'm trying to say. We all have this. You have to trust yourself. You have to spend the time. You have to meditate. You have to overcome your mind, your emotions, your body, and build your intuition. What's true? If I touch upon the political landscape, I will tell you that both sides are a show. It's no different than the World Wrestling Federation. I can see through it. And I think many of you can too if you're really paying attention. They argue and they fight on TV and nothing ever happens and it just keeps going down a particular road that's not making lives better. Are they really representing people? Do our votes even count? Honestly. I ask that question honestly. I don't know if they do. I don't think they do. And so what is really going on? So the great spiritual leaders are where they are also because of power and corruption. That's why I don't want to mention any particular religion because I don't want to offend anyone, but let's be honest. Why, let's just ask this. Let's give college as an example. Why do colleges, certain colleges, have billions upon billions of dollars and yet still have to run fundraisers, still have to charge high tuitions, still have to don't help in their community? You know, it's this constant greed. That's why a lot of people think these days, because of, in my opinion, a poor direction of education, capitalism's bad. Capitalism isn't bad. Capitalism is empowering the person who's willing to create and be an entrepreneur and build for themselves. I've used capitalism completely to my advantage in my life, and I'm grateful for it. The problem isn't capitalism. The problem is greed and corruption. The problem is people don't have exactly what you're asking. They don't have a spiritual connection, and therefore they think they can do whatever serves them. They can be as selfish as they want to be. They can hurt as many people, and they don't care. You know, companies want to be able to focus on the bottom line for shareholders, and it doesn't matter how many people they hurt because that just becomes, well, what's the cost? Literally, if this costs me this much, but we do this, we make this much more, and our shareholders are happy, then we can do it. We can get away with that, even if we're penalized $1 billion. We'll make 20 billion in the process, and so it's worth the expense, and the expense includes lives, maybe. So who are we kidding? And then some people who speak out straight out for people who follow them, in many cases, are killed. There's lists of doctors, natural doctors. People have given a list of all these people. Some of them shot right here. Highest level of corruption, biggest financial, I guess, risk to them, threat to them. Power, greed, corruption. It's a very hard question to answer because a good person asks that, you know. An honest person asks that. Where are my leaders? Why aren't we giving any spiritual guidance? Why isn't someone stepping up? And in many cases, people are stepping up, but they get knocked down because there's such power in this digital world. Even start, if I say too much of the wrong things, and this is going out on YouTube, they do a digital check. I watch when I upload the video, they do a digital check. They can check every word that was said, and if you say any of the wrong words, they won't allow you to even put the video up. What's that about? I've always said 5 people face the same situation. 5 people can have 5 different responses to the same situation. Why can't we put those 5 people in a room and discuss why they have a different reaction to the same situation? Today we can't. It would benefit everyone if we could hear all 5 perspectives. Why are you doing well and why are you doing so poorly with the same situation? This way people can get more help. They can communicate, they can argue, they can figure out what's the best way. But if you take away 4 of them and only allow 1 of them to speak, it's just wrong. And anyone with half a brain can tell that that's not right. And that's what I mean. We have to stop taking sides. We have to recognize what's right and wrong, not right and left. What is actually benefiting people? What is consistent with human nature? And then developing your own connection so you can be calmer, think more clearer, not be run by emotions, and figure out what can I do rather than crying about what's happening. I don't want to get too far with that. But when I said a good person asked that question, because we have this naive belief that there's somebody very high, because we think people are higher than us. Somebody very high is going to help us. It's going to help you. And I say you have to really help yourself. I recognize very clearly with people I love and care about who I can talk to and who I can't. I mean openly. Who I can speak to openly and who I have to watch what I say. Everybody should be very aware of that. And so to keep the peace and also to not stress people out, I have to be, we have to be careful what we talk about, which is really unfortunate because to me that's total weakness. Because I like to say, anyone can say anything to me and I'll give you my perspective and I'll hear yours. But today, there's a lot of propaganda, a lot of manipulation of how people think and what they think is right and what they think is wrong. And they don't even realize it. It's very powerful to manipulate people's thinking. And then if you have you can come from science, you can come from intellect, and you can watch how somebody responds to it. Something's not right. This is new. And I think I've been talking about it probably 15 to 20 years that I've noticed the real shift. And then every 5 years worse. Every 5 years worse. Everybody knows about cancel culture, right? Can you imagine a great spiritual leader stepping up and getting canceled because they said the wrong thing? Don't you think they have to be wise enough to be in their position to say what's accepted and what's maybe wanted by very powerful people? It's not so simple to just be a spiritual leader. And here's the thing. I'll go back to what I started with. The best spiritual leaders are going to be telling you how to be more spiritual for yourself, not tell you what to do, not tell you right from wrong. And anytime I take questions, I want you to know these are my answers. They don't have to be your answers. My background, my experience is not yours. If it works for you, try it, see if it works for you. But don't trust me. It's not gospel. I'm not, Jesus or Moses or any of these Lao Tzu or Buddha. Although Buddha said we are all Buddha. And so we have to think about that. See, those are my great spiritual leaders. We can crack a real old-fashioned book and try to tune in, because we meditate, because we get to the mind of the great leaders, we can understand better what they were trying to say. Because everybody is just a man or a woman or whatever the heck they think they are, and nobody's better and nobody's worse. Why not develop your own wisdom? And the greatest wisdom is to know yourself first. To be brutally honest with yourself. To feel direct connection to all that is. On your own. Why do you need some spiritual leader? Your spiritual leader is within. And so, think high enough of yourself to take the time and develop that. You're serious that way? Minimum 30 minutes morning and evening. Minimum. Most serious meditators are 1, 2, 3 hours easy and more. Now I know schedules don't allow that, but you know what? No excuse. You want a real direct connect? Or you want to listen to someone that you think is a spiritual leader who may not have your best interests at heart. And you can't even recognize it because you don't know yourself. And you don't see true spiritual teachings and what is actually BS. You need to be your own great spiritual leader. We all do. Another question. Earlier, Mr. Ahles, was your hand up?
Yeah, it was, but after that, doesn't seem like a good question. I kind of like this topic. Trying to think if there's a question that could tie into that. I don't know. If anybody else has something, go ahead. I need to think.
Yes, sir. Miss Beaumont.
Comment. I think that there may be spiritual leaders here and there that aren't world renowned, but they are leaders in their own general area or environment.
I'm glad you
just-
said that, because they're out there. You just don't know about them. I completely agree with you. That's it. Just that they're out there. So then I go back to what I was saying. How do you recognize it? How do we know what's real? How do we know what's true?
I've seen people who really live what they believe in.
Okay.
And they live for a cause above themselves.
Agreed. Now, how do they lead you? By example, right?
What?
How do they lead you? Spiritual leader is helping others. Okay. So there's charity, and then there's action. How do you live? And that's their calling, not yours. So how do you use that to your benefit and learning and advancement in this life?
Well, they strengthen my belief just by seeing their example. And I try to follow their example in my own life. I may not be quite as successful, but I try to think of what they do and where their belief comes from so that I can pursue it in my own life. I'm thinking of a particular person.
So there's an old saying that the guru should live 2 villages away. Familiarity breeds contempt. So you have a particular person in mind and the way they live, but you have no idea their private life.
I have no idea of what?
Their private life. How they are when nobody's looking. And I don't have any idea who you're talking about.
No,
I'm
probably
speaking in
not.
generalities. So we have to be careful what we trust because we can be tricked, we can be conned. And then my question was, how do you know? And my answer was because you have a direct connect. It's not action. It's also something else. It's a basic truth. And your intuition, your heart will tell you that if you're clear within yourself.
Yeah,
Make sense?
yeah,
So that's why I'm really trying to emphasize practice. We need to practice. We raise ourselves up spiritually. There are people who live, they give themselves their whole lives, right? They live among the poor and they just feed and they raise funds for them, whatever. There's other people who look to do the same thing and they become multimillionaires in the process, maybe billionaires, because they steal the money that they talk other people into giving to these people who are poor.
yeah,
So what's going on there, right? They appear to be helpful, but they're not. And so there's a lot of corruption. So how do we discern truth from untruth? And that's why I want to say there is nobody better than you. And there is nobody worse than you. And we have to be able to see in each other's eyes the spark of the divine. And once we can see that, we are closer to truth. Then there's basic things that we have to be able to, how to care for ourselves if the powers that be are not on our side. Look, we just had a gas shortage, right? I can't even get gas here today. I don't know how you guys are doing now, but we have empty stations. And all that would take is about a week, and then you don't have enough food. And if you don't have enough food, well now, I mean, within a week, you don't have enough food. Everybody's going to be panicking, right? It would take weeks and weeks to starve, but they'll be very uncomfortable, hungry. And that's very serious how fast that can happen. And so my question in general there is, what the heck's going on there? So we want a spiritual leader, or do we want food to feed this body right now? So it's like, what level we at? We can't be focused on spirit if we can't even meet our basic survival needs. So this is all part of the knowledge, and in my opinion, of a martial artist. Because how do I defend my mind, my emotions, even my body internally, how it responds to the environment? Well, that's all spiritual. And I can be okay no matter what happens because I know this body is just a suit and I'm just going to move on and I have no connection. I have no attachment to it. How many can say that? How many can say they have no fear of death? Yeah, it's a general, you don't have to raise your hand. I'm just making a point. How many can say that? Because if you are afraid to die, how well can you live?
yeah,
And that's how we get run by fear. So what happens if you see there's not enough fuel? We very quickly won't have the trucks, we won't have food. What do? Go scream into the powers that be who are or may not have your best interest at heart? Or do you find sources of food? Because I've got farms, I've got basically figured out everything I need. Been planting a garden to feed I mean, we feed ourselves with what's local regardless of what happens in the world. You have to think about that. Because we don't know what's going on and we can't trust that everything's going to be fine. And then you have that covered and then you can move to another level. Another level being more in taking care of yourself, practice, think that kind of stuff. So basic needs. If you can't eat, you're not going to be worried too much about praying other than, you know, please give me food. Please help things work out. But you see, I don't believe that's prayer. You don't ask for things with prayer. You ask what you can do for God, for his plan. How can you serve? That's prayer. What challenges do I need to overcome to grow in this lifetime? Not what can you give me? If suffering is in your path, then that's what you got to face. And we have to be okay with that. I have a hand up over here. Lower hand. Yes, Miss Anagnastis. Beth.
Hi, sir. Good to see you.
Hello.
I have a question. So I know I need to meditate more. However, in addition to meditation, what are some other things that can be helpful to living in the moment? Because I still really struggle with it, and like I said, I know meditation is one of the top ways, but I mean, I know being outside, when I'm outside, certain things, it's easier for me to be in the moment when I'm with my nieces, their kids, it's easier, nature, but music sometimes, but especially during, a busy day at work or just in life sometimes, I have a really hard time just being in the now. So I didn't know if there was any other things that you suggest.
Okay, I get this kind of question a lot, and it always starts with, I know I need to meditate more. So why don't you meditate more? There's no excuse, Beth. If you're serious about your spiritual progress and you really want the answer to that question, you can answer it by actually doing the work. I have no shortcut, I have no pill, and nobody gave me one either. You have to do the work. You wouldn't even be able to talk about it if you don't have the personal experience. Like, I wouldn't be able to talk about it if I didn't have the personal experience. And that's why sometimes I have to just be tough. There is no easier way. And how many times have you heard me say, practice 24/7? So you lift a weight. You keep lifting the weight. People do curls and make the bicep bigger, right? Or whatever, something to, bench press, make the chest bigger, whatever, the bodybuilder type stuff. You're lifting a weight. That exercise develops that muscle. What's developing your mind? You're not going to get the results of being in shape or building a muscle, body shaping, body building, whatever that stuff is, without doing the work. You could go to the best coach in the world, pay him $1 million and say, how do I know you told me to do the bench press and the curl or whatever they're telling, and I actually don't believe in individual exercises like that, but we're just making an example. I know you said in order to build my chest, I have to do a bench press, for example. But what else can I do? It's like, well, you have to do that first. You have to do what gets that result first. If you want to have good conditioning, you have to do conditioning. You want to be able to go up steps and not be out of breath. You have to do the conditioning so your body changes. If your body doesn't change, that will always be difficult, and there is no pill and there is no shortcut. And no matter how great the trainer is, he can't do it for you. Yeah, but I still breathe heavy when I go upstairs. Well, clearly you're not doing the work to be in that kind of condition. So if you can't practice being in the moment anytime, anywhere, then you are not developing that part of your brain and your body in order to control yourself. And you are not alone. I'm giving a hard answer just because this is a common question. And always, I know I should practice more, but there's no but. We can make excuses all we want. It doesn't get the results that we need. We have to get off our butts. We have to stop the laziness or maybe the overwork. Maybe you're just too darn busy and you don't give yourself the time you need to develop yourself in the place that's most important so you experience a better life. That's very common too. Undersleeping, overworking, stressed out all the time. Your hand is up again? I can't see you, that's why. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. What
No,
are you?
no, I'm sorry. This was Beth still. Beth, you want to talk again? You put your hand up again?
No, I just didn't lower it. I forget. Sorry. Thank you, sir. I'm
Oh,
gonna lower it.
okay.
I'm gonna lower
Okay.
it. Sorry.
You're okay with me yelling at you in public?
I am, sir. And I do meditate maybe 6 days a week, but it's not long enough. It's not 30 minutes twice a day. It's not 30 minutes once a day, and maybe 15, 20 minutes tops, but that's not enough for me. It's not enough.
Okay, let me address that before I go to Mr. Antonu.
Yes, sir.
Antimate. So I said 30 minutes twice a day, yeah, and that's
Mhm.
because that needs to get comfortable. If you can't do 30 minutes twice a day, then it's not comfortable. You're probably not getting low enough. You're probably not training your brain properly. If it's just a short relaxation period, then you may not ever reach what real meditation is. You have to experience what real meditation is. Real meditation is very similar to when you go to sleep and you wake up and you don't even realize an hour or 2 hours or 6 hours went by. That's your best sleep, when you drop down low. Well, meditation can be like that. You're completely there, you're fully conscious, but there's no thoughts. And 10 minutes, what feels like 10 minutes could be an hour. The time just goes by. And that's the thing that comes from experience, because it's not just that you can lift a heavier weight because you lift weights more. It's also because you've actually developed new connections in your brain, and your body is used to being still, and your nervous system's used to relaxing because you've trained that. So in the early stages, you may not be able to sit for 30 minutes. It may be too much for you. So just going out for anybody who's doing 5 minutes or not at all, and this Shifu said I have to do 30 minutes, I'm not really saying that. I'm saying that's how much you have to do to learn what it is to actually meditate, and then you'll even go longer very easily too. But once you have the habit, and once you have the development, you can use the breath and get there momentarily. I touch it every time we go. If I was leading a class, sitting in front of the class, I touch it. I go there, I touch it. What is it? What am I touching? I can't tell you. You have to touch it yourself. What's the taste of chocolate, right? I can't describe it. You have to taste it yourself. And so it's not just the amount of time. Now, if you can sit like that, if you do develop yourself, now automatically it's easier every time of day.
You're right, sir, because the last time I really felt like that consistently, I'll be honest, was when I was training for my second green test, and I had to do 45 minutes. So every week I did a little bit longer, like 2 minutes more, 2 minutes more. I was preparing for like probably 3 months prior, or 2 months, whatever it was. And I do think the length of time, I got to a different level in the meditation, because the first 10 or 15, I feel like I have to get a little past that 20, 25, 30. Then I start going deeper, like you said. It's different. The first maybe 15, I think I'm still kind of settling in from the day or whatever's going on. So, but I felt that month or so when I had hit the 40, 45, I felt really good. It was different. It was just different level. You know what I'm saying? So I agree.
Does everybody see how she could have answered the question on her own? Yeah. Because something in you is looking for an easier way, and there is no easier way. You already experienced it. You have to just apply it.
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Well,
Antimate,
thank
you're
appreciate
welcome.
Yes, sir. What are your views on weightlifting, and coupling it with training by Bagua?
Okay, in general, bad match. They don't help each other much. It has to be the right kind of resistance training. And the best one I have found, literally, I trained seriously, and it was a kettlebell. Not segmented movements. Because if you go to the gym and you do machines, or you do even free weights, and you're doing like a bodybuilding type of thing with the bench press, the curl, the tricep press, whatever, when you segment the body, you are doing the exact opposite of what Bagua is trying to do. Your Bagua is trying to connect everything. And when you separate it like that, like laying on a bench and doing a bench press, you're separating that from how it's supposed to function with the rest of your body, because your neurology develops with what you do. You ask your body what to do, so now you're segmenting it with these separated things. It's not going to work together. You are developing the neurological connections for what you're doing. And Bagua is trying to do something else completely. So I've had plenty of people who are, whether they're bodybuilders or weightlifters, and they're very hard to train. They're very hard for them to get. It's hard for anybody to get it, because just like the meditation, you have to put the time in. But now, Bagua takes so much time to develop. And now you want to do the weight training, and how much time is that going to take? Because I've had times in my life where I did that stuff very seriously, actually. And I had a training partner who actually asked me that question. He says, imagine if you put the time you put into weights into your Kung Fu. And it just clicked for me. I said, you know what? You're right. And then I completely stopped doing that. And then many years later, for practical reasons, actually for some rehab reasons, I got introduced to the kettlebell. I had read about it when it first was introduced in the country, probably late 90s, 2000, something like that. And then I started understanding the biomechanics behind it. And there was a consistency with the Bagua. So when we've had a couple of workshops with the kettlebell, I would tell people it's like Qigong on steroids. Now, what is Qigong on steroids? Qigong on steroids, meaning the resistance teaches you structural alignments. The right exercises will teach you structural alignments that Qigong does over many years by practicing very slowly. So there are things like a Turkish get-up, where you have to put a weight over, you have to go all the way to the ground and you have to start from the ground and stand all the way up and get all the way back down, and you're keeping the weight straight over your head. So your body has to align itself all the way through that pathway up and down. And truth is truth. You don't align it, you're going to crash down, and that thing's going to fall. You're going to hurt yourself. So you learn through feedback from the weight what structure really is. And then when you practice your Qigong, you have a much more kinesthetic feeling, development, that you understand from doing, not from intellect, or not from just copying a movement. Because you can copy a movement and not do it right. Now, that said, what's your question specifically? What are you trying to accomplish? Let me ask you that. You want more size?
No, just more definition.
Well, definition has very little to do with weight training. Definition has more to do with diet. You have to eat right. At least 75% of your body composition is going to be how you eat. You have to eat properly.
What about more strength?
Then you do strength training. There's strength training and there's bodybuilding. They're not the same. Some people with what people would say like a beautiful beach body, right? All these muscles are actually very weak, relatively. So the resistance training I did for strength didn't put any size on me at all. What it did was, and I didn't want any size. I just wanted to be strong. And also, as we age, we lose muscle tissue and we lose strength. So this was a very strategic, I had a strategic reason for what I was doing. To really just to help my Bagua last longer so I can continue to progress there. So that's why when I ask you that, it has really to do with what's your goal. So if really strength is your goal, then are you familiar at all with the kettlebell?
I've never really used it. The gym that I go to, they have a large set of kettlebells. So that's my next objective, is to research, how to start using them, because I see people use them all the time, but I've
You
personally
need
never.
training. You need training. You don't just follow anybody. I would say look up Strong First online and see if they have anything online you can follow, and you can even send a video and get corrected. I
Sorry,
did that. Sorry?
I'm sorry. What a website did you say? Was it a website?
Strong First.
Strong First.
Probably strongfirst.com. I was an instructor for a while. I mean, I've done the test at least 3 times, level 2 strength. It's very challenging. You build up gradually. And they have programs that you can follow, but you do need coaching to do it properly. So we've done workshops at the dojo, actually. Maybe twice a year we've done it, but I don't see that happening for a while. So I could probably come up with somebody locally you could train with if you want to, if you're serious. You do some private classes and just learn how to do it, and then really just do it on your own at home or at the gym. Once you know what you're doing, then you're fine. Okay? But that doesn't conflict with our practice, because it's actually teaching you how to use your body properly. There's ballistics and there's grinds. Ballistics are really for conditioning, and the grinds are for strength. And it's just a wonderful particular way it works that works very well with the body rather than against the body and hurting it. It's more functional is another way to put it. Is there another question before we finish up? Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Very welcome. So, going back to meditation, okay, and the challenge and the reason why people always say, I should do more. Okay, you have to challenge yourself. Just like, or in fact, I would say start warming up first. Just like you have to get started with your warm-up to train in the physical part of the arts. Same thing, go out, loosen up a little bit, and then sit. And when you sit, maybe do some breathing. And the breathing will help to center you, because the breathing is a focus on its own. Cleansing, filling, right? You do those kind of, it's some holding. And then you just go to what? Remember the concentration exercise, visualizing numbers, but let's back off of that a little bit. The first thing you got to do is you got to be able to sit still. The body doesn't like to sit still. And so then the mind is going crazy and the body doesn't want to sit still, and so you don't last very long. So one of the things you have to develop is the ability to sit still. Sitting still will still the mind, and of course having a focal point will also still the mind, which will then still the body. So you see that there's a circle. They're feeding each other. The body wants to move. The nervous system's going to start to activate. Energy is going to be sent to the arms and the legs. And if you ignore it, you might start to feel itching or pain. It's trying to tell you to move, and you're trying to sit still. And that in itself is a challenge that you have to overcome. You have to apply your will. And by applying your will successfully, you're strengthening your will, which is another reason why most people say I need to do more, because their will isn't strong. You don't say I have to do more when your will is strong, because your will get you doing it, and you will do it consistently, and then you will reap the rewards. So by doing, your will gets stronger. Also by doing, your body changes, your mind changes, literally your brain changes. Your nervous system calms down, your thoughts will calm down, your emotions will settle. All of this works together. I once ended up with a welt on my buttocks sitting by a tree, and I was being bit. And I had a consciousness that I was being bit, but I didn't feel pain because my mind was removed from my body. And that's what we have to do. My mind was out of the senses. I was just sitting there like a tree stump. And there was nothing but an awareness that I was getting bit, but I didn't let it bother me, and I just continued. And probably an hour later, I finally got up and checked out what happened, and I had a welt because I was probably bitten by a nice spider. But it was just one of those examples. There's been times where, and this isn't fun, but I've had both experiences where you're sitting where there's mosquitoes. Usually I'll run something, this little gadget that gets rid of mosquitoes, but every once in a while I'm in a place where I just want to sit and it doesn't happen. And the mosquitoes are attacking and you completely ignore them. But that's not a lot of fun after. But there's been other times when I've noticed a very interesting experience where thinking creates like a static electricity. This was my interpretation of it. That the busy mind was attracting the mosquitoes. And as the mind calmed, the mosquitoes would leave me alone. I've had that experience too. It was very odd. So something to play with, something to try, but it's very hard to completely quiet the mind where you don't have that static, right? And then once the mosquitoes come, then your mind goes to the mosquito. So it's sort of a catch-22 there. But I have had that experience. I've had the experience just wandering in the woods with the same sort of thing. As I completely blend into the environment where there's really no thought, I'm just existing. And there's no bugs bother me. There's no gnats, there's no mosquitoes. And there's other times where the mind's busy and then I get all the gnats and the mosquitoes. It's very interesting. It's like it attracts them. Many years ago, I saw an amazing animation, was live with animation explaining that world. That it's like a radar that they pick up. Like they don't see you physically, but they see you like electrically. And I never could find it again. I've searched. It was wonderful. It was like Discovery Channel or something, but this is many years ago now, and I've tried a few times to find it again because I thought it was so well done. But it was so interesting how it's like a radar, how they know their environment. Like a bat, but birds have it too. Like how do they know to fly south and to fly north, and how do they locate their home from so far away? They actually tune into the magnetic poles and the magnetic forces, both with animals and the land. And when you see something like that, it opens up a whole new world for what's possible and even what we're capable of. Which kind of goes back to my original thing that you have to get a direct connect. And that direct connect is more real than you may realize. It's not just this delusion or belief. It's an actual feeling that the same thing that started the whole universe is within you. And it is you. And you're just one little piece of that, experiencing your little part. And you have that as a knowing, not a belief. Meditation can do that, and when you have that, then there's no worries. Now, certainly, as I said earlier, you can prepare in the physical plane and make sure you can eat and have shelter and heat, etc. But there's no worry. There's no fear. And so when a lot of, so many today are just saying, turn off the TV. They are controlling the world with fear. And if you're living in fear, I feel sorry for you. But through this whole thing, I never had that fear. So for what that's worth, this is a perfect example of 5 people in the same experience. What did you experience in the same environment? Same thing. 5 people going through this virus situation, or whatever the situation. What's your experience? What's my experience? What's the next person's experience? Because some are full of fear every moment, and some have no fear whatsoever. Which would you prefer to be? That's a real question you have to look in the mirror and ask yourself. Meditation can help you control that and stop buying into propaganda. Let's go to meditation.